Now for more on May's resignation and the road ahead for Brexit, I'm joined by Bassima Alghussein. She's CEO of Alghussein Global Strategies and a former advisor to former US President Barack Obama. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start by unpacking some of this. Between now and Theresa May's departure on June 7th, what sort of conversations are being had about Britain and, of course, the future of Brexit?
Well, there's a lot of domestic tension going on right now because, on one hand, no member of parliament or prime minister has been successful in delivering Brexit. And then on the other hand, there are many members of government and in the business community who are opposed to just a clean Brexit. So there's a big tension right now between essentially a Brexit with no deal or a Brexit with a deal and what that would look like.
And we know that opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn suggested another general election. Now, we know that failing to deliver on all this is going to fall on Theresa May's shoulders, but we must remember it's actually former Prime Minister David Cameron who got us into this position by actually putting the Brexit referendum first. So between options of another referendum or what the British public want, what are they saying about this?
Well, it seems at this point that we've seen members of Theresa May's party, the Conservative Party, in the most recent election cycles lose a number of seats in government all across the country. And so what has happened, the only reason why the Conservative Party is maintaining control of the parliament is because of a consensus that they have with another party that is part of Northern Ireland. And so we see a severe weakening of the Conservative Party. Jeremy Corbyn, as you pointed out, is the leader of the Liberal Party, and understandably he's trying to take this as a political opportunity to gain more votes and more seats of power for his party. So as Theresa May pointed out, she's going to resign on June 7th, and between now and then there will have to be an election. There are about 6 serious candidates right now who are being considered, and it will they will be voted by all members of the government, which are about 140,000 registered members, until it narrows down to 2 members, and then they'll have a vote within the parliament itself.
So then, of the options left on the table, because a lot of people are wondering, should this decision now go back to the people, as the Labour leader had said, but of the options on the table, which has the most potential to help or potentially hurt the British economy?
So this is really the biggest question, because what we're seeing right now is a tension in Parliament, and what any next British Prime Minister is going to face, which is if they're not able to deliver Brexit to the people, then they're probably going to be doomed and not able to keep their seat. But at the same time, we know, and there are lots of entities and interests in the British community and just the larger international trade community who recognize that Brexit would have some very negative implications for the British economy and then ripple effects. And so there are incentives, there's kind of short-term political incentives for the next Prime Minister to either go forward with a Brexit, clean Brexit, or, as you have suggested, punt it and essentially suggest another referendum. I would hope at this point we've kind of learned our lesson that these big policy matters, policy questions shouldn't necessarily be left up to the public, but should be handled, by the experts and be negotiated by trade experts.
And obviously, speaking of ripple effects, we know that the European parliamentary elections are going on, ironically, while this is happening, as Theresa May is stepping down. How do you see the position now between the EU and the UK?
Well, we saw President Macron say earlier today that it's really confusing, and the European bloc is going to need clarification ASAP from the British government. I am hopeful that Theresa May's resignation and what insofar as the failure of Brexit, and from my position, I'm hoping that it will not go forward, we will also see a decline in this nationalist sentiment that has risen throughout Europe and really expanded throughout the world. We saw when President Trump was elected, and then many people who have touted this nationalistic message. And so, as a former Obama administration official, I'm much more for one who advocates for a global community of interaction and diplomacy, and for global agreements.
So then what message do you think all this Brexit upheaval sends, not just to current members of the EU, but other countries that potentially wanted to join the EU about where it's all heading?
I think the most important thing to take away from it is not a good idea to put such huge matters up for a referendum. These issues are, because first of all, the public cannot be sufficiently educated on the details just via watching television, and there's always going to be such strong lobbying efforts to influence public opinion one way or the other, and so they're not necessarily able to make the decision for the best interests of the country. And that's why in any elective democracy, we elect officials who take the time, or who are supposed to take the time, to specialize understanding the subject matter and all the intersections that it has with different parts of the economy, and also defense agreements and so on and so forth, so that the country can succeed. And so I think I'm hopeful that Brexit continues to not be a success, but at the same time, we're going to definitely see continued increased domestic political pressure on whomever is the next prime minister to deliver it.
We'll certainly have to watch and see. Thank you so much for your insights. Bassima Alghussein there, CEO of Alghussein Global Strategies.